If you're in a car lease or thinking about leasing, stop what you're doing. You're going to want to hear this. I'm about to list every single leasing company and whether or not you're allowed to trade in or sell your lease. Do they have a restriction? Do they allow you to trade it anywhere? And I'm also going to tell you, if you are restricted, how you can deal with it. I'm going to give you 3 expert tips at the end of this video. If you are in this group of restricted trade-ins, how you get around it, what I do with my clients to get around it every month. All right, guys, I'm a lease guy. This is very important information. If you're in a lease or you're thinking about leasing, you need to know what you can and can't do with your car at the end of the lease. It is vital that you watch this video. All right, let's start from the top. I'm going to start with the leasing companies that do not allow you to sell or trade the vehicles to third parties. It's called a third-party sale restriction. So you can only sell or trade it back to the dealership brand you got it from, not some other brand. So they're just trying to control where the car goes at the end of the lease. So starting from the top, Acura Financial Services does restrict third-party trades. And like I said before, at the end of this, I'm going to tell you how to get around this. All right, next up, BMW Financial does restrict where you can sell or trade it only back to a BMW dealer. Ford Credit restricts. GM Financial restricts. Honda Financial Services, which is also the same company as Acura, also restricts. So whenever you have a luxury and a consumer brand, they're pretty much going to have the same rules. There's like several of those. Honda and Acura is one of them. Next up, we have Infinity Financial Services tied to Nissan. That should tell you a little hint about Nissan. Infinity does restrict. Cannot trade that vehicle to any other brand dealership but Infinity or Nissan. So whenever there's 2 brands like that are sister brands, luxury and consumer, those 2 you can trade back and forth because they're the same company, but not any other brand than those 2. All right, next up, we got Kia Motor Finance. Restricts. Lincoln Automotive Financial Services also restricts. We got Mini Financial Services, so Mini Cooper restricts. Nissan Motor Acceptance Company, like we said, Infinity restricts, and Nissan's going to restrict too, same company. Then we have Southeast Toyota Finance. Now, don't be confused. This is not Toyota Financial. We'll get to them in a minute. This is a smaller leasing company called Southeast Toyota Finance. If you're with them, you'll know. But if you're with Toyota Financial, don't worry. Southeast Toyota does restrict. Next up, Volvo. Volvo does restrict as well. So, yeah, that as well. Tesla Finance, they restrict. And then if you're leasing with like this company called Credit Union Leasing of America, they restrict. I don't really care about credit unions and banks. I'm talking more about captive finance companies, but they're on the list, so I'll list them for you. All right, next up, I'm going to give you a quasi group in the middle that doesn't restrict, but they pretty much do. It serves the same purpose. They don't say no, but they make the trade-in so unattractive that it might as well be saying no. It's like saying no without saying no. So that being said, Audi Financial Services, what they do is they say, yeah, you can trade it in, but we're going to raise the price if you sell it somewhere else. So they make the trade-in unattractive. So they don't tell you can't, but they're going to raise the price, so you don't do it anyway. Same result. So I consider that a restriction. And then, of course, VW Credit, because VW and Audi, sister brands, They do the same thing. If you try to trade your VW somewhere else, they're going to raise the price. So they're just kind of forcing you back to one of their dealers, VW or Audi. And then the ones I really dislike, which are these non-captive outside lenders that you're probably familiar with, Ally Bank, US Bank, and then Cal Automotive. They all do the same thing. They increase the price if you try to sell the car somewhere else. And what I really don't like about them is if you call them and say, hey, what's my payoff or dealer payoff if I want to trade it to, let's say, a Honda dealer or a Toyota dealer or whatever, they won't tell you. So not only are they're raising the price, they don't even let you do the calculation to know if you even have equity. You have to have the dealership call in to find out the information. And we don't want to be messing with dealers before we even know our own numbers. Like, they're just setting you up to get screwed. I absolutely despise that. I don't know if they mean to do that, but they're just really trying to force you to stay with them. And keeping information from you is not good business. I don't like it. All right, next up, the good guys, the ones that let you do anything you want, sell it anywhere. Maybe you want to think about staying with these kind of companies if selling or trading your lease at the end is important to you. So let's get to the good ones. We got Chrysler Capital. Now, what Chrysler Capital does is in the last 60 days, they kind of put the payoff quote away, or the place they were showing it to you online, it goes away. So the dealer payoff you need to trade the car in the last 60 days of the lease is a little harder to get. Doesn't mean you can't trade it. Sometimes you have to call in to Chrysler Capital, have somebody, like maybe a dealership even, try it yourself, but it's just not as readily available. So they'll let you trade it, try to do it before the last 60 days. If you in the last 2 months, you can still do it, but you got to jump through some hoops to get the payoff quote. All right, next up, Jaguar Land Rover Financial. They're with Chase Bank. So you're going to see a theme here. The leasing companies that are actually through Chase don't restrict. So if you got a Chase Bank lease, any brand, you can pretty much sell or trade that thing anywhere. That means you can go to CarMax, you can go to Carvana, you can sell to any dealership you want, switch brands, no restriction. Awesome. Next up, Lexus Financial Services, tied to Toyota. So that tells you something about Toyota Financial, which I was hinting at earlier, does not restrict. Mazda Capital Services through Chase Bank, does not restrict. Mazda Financial Services, not through Chase Bank, does not restrict. If you got a Mazda, sell or trade it, you're good to go. Next up, we got Porsche Financial Services or Porsche Financial Services. They don't restrict. Awesome. Subaru Motor Finance through Chase, does not restrict. There's a theme there. Chase doesn't. Good on Chase. They're an outside lender that has relationships with manufacturers, and they let you do what you need to. That's awesome. Toyota Financial Services, not to be confused with Southeast Toyota from earlier. Toyota Financial Services does not restrict. You can sell or trade anywhere. And last up on my list, Mercedes-Benz Financial does not restrict. You can sell or trade anywhere. Now, all of this list, take it, as, I know this to be true, but these restrictions, to or not to, can change on a dime. These companies can change whether or not they're going to enforce their contract on a whim. They used to not enforce it because it made sense for you to dispose of the car for them when they had no value because it cost them money to transport, sell at auction, all that. So they used to just let you do it. Honda Finance has always had a restriction in their contract, but only when the chip shortage happened did they actually start enforcing it. So you might want to even call, my list could be outdated. Call your leasing company if you're on the restricted ones, especially with Hyundai and Kia. I want to double check them and just see if they've let up on that, because the values have dropped. They may have changed their mind. So if that is happening, comment, let me know. If you have one of them, give them a call. I can call them myself, but I'd rather hear from you guys and hear from several sources. But always double check this information with the leasing company. So now let's get to the ways around the third-party restriction. So I deal with this all the time. My clients come to me, they want to switch brands from a car that restricts to another brand, and we got to get around that. So there's ways around it. There's 3 ways to do it. 2 ways I like. 1 way I don't really do that much myself, but I'll tell you about it. Here, let's get into it. So the first one is you just split the process. If I got a Honda Finance lease and I want a Toyota and Honda Finance doesn't let me trade a Toyota, fine. I'll get a Toyota over here and I'll sell my Honda over here. I just take the Honda to a Honda store or an Acura store, so you can go to the sister brand, sell it there, put that equity in my bank account, get my new car somewhere else. I don't do a direct trade, so I might miss out on some tax credits, things like that, but I can still sell it, take the positive equity out if it is positive, put it in my bank account, get the new car somewhere else. I do it in the opposite order, get the new car first, then sell the old car. So you don't have the cash necessarily to spend on the new car, but if you watch any of my videos, making a down payment in cash on a lease doesn't make it a better deal. It's almost better if you hold the money because you have the money to pay the higher payment. You're just the one holding the money. If you give them the money, yes, the payment goes down, but you could lose that money if the car gets totaled. So, I wouldn't spend cash as a down payment. Sell the car separately, just keep it. If you can do a direct trade, I'm okay with doing the trade credit because it's not new cash out of your bank account. But once it's cash and it's my cash, I'm keeping that cash. All right, then next up, which is a good way around this. I don't make these deals only because of this, but this is the really easiest way around it. You find a dealer group that has both brands that you want to get. If you find a dealer group that's like, Johnson Honda and Johnson Toyota, the Johnson dealer group, I just made that up, but you know what I'm talking about. Even if Honda Finance restricts, and you show up at Johnson Toyota with a Honda, they'll just call their Honda store and be like, hey, check it in through your system. And they'll put the VIN in, and they'll make it look like the Honda went back to the Honda store. And Honda and Toyota don't communicate with each other, so Honda Finance can never find out that you've got a Toyota. They're not giving them that data. All they know is their Honda came back to the Honda store, even though it's across town at the Johnson Toyota dealership. Those dealers know what they're doing. They're smart. They just call their sister store. Hey, I got one of your cars over here. Let's get around that restriction. Check it in through your system. We'll pay it off through their online system. They'll never know. Happens every single day. I bet 95% of dealers do that. If they don't know about it, I'd be very shocked. It's really easy, but you don't necessarily want to make a deal only because of that. If you get a better offer and you have to split the process, split the process. But if you can find a dealer group that has both, easy way around it. They do behind the scenes. They'll never come back on you. They can never find out. They don't have that information. Finally, the last way to get around it, which I don't really like, but you can do, and I want to mention it just for being thorough, is you can buy the car. If you want to buy it, pay the sales tax, get the title, bill of sale, transfer ownership, become its owner, then you can sell it anywhere you want. put it on Facebook Marketplace, sell it to your cousin, take it to CarMax, Carvana, sell it for closer to market value, but just more of a financial burden to take ownership of the car first to get around the restriction. But I guess if you had a heck of a lot of equity, didn't use any of the miles at all, and it's like $10,000 plus, and you really want to get that money back, maybe that's an option. When it's, 4,000, 5,000, 3,000, I wouldn't do that, because by the time you pay the sales tax, transfer the title, become the owner, then you got to find a buyer. It's just, that headache for me is not something I want to deal with my clients, at least. I don't really recommend that very often. But guys, this is important information. I hope you like this. This list, like I said, can change. You got to check with your leasing company. But if you're in a lease, this is what you need to know. I hope you heard your leasing company and how they treat their end of lease trade-ins. If you need to, rewind it. There's captions. You can look for your leasing company's name. I'm Adam the Lease Guy. If that was helpful, please like, subscribe, come back for more.